Greetings, beloved. Thank you for joining us today. Have you ever wondered why so many women are not equipped for marriage? It's because being a woman does not make you a bride, no more than being a woman makes you a mother. As with so many things in life, there's a process that leads us to our desired end. If your desired end is to be a bride according to biblical standards, then you have tuned in at the perfect time. Chapter 2 of the book of Titus tells us that the aged women should take the younger women through the process of becoming not just brides for a day, but brides for a lifetime. So stay tuned for more of Bridesmaid with me, your host, Renee Bolden. Greetings, everyone. It is lovely to see you all. Last week we had a discussion, and it was no credit for time served, and it kind of sparked quite a bit of conversation. And it seemed like one particular thing kind of came up several times in several conversations that I had. So we are going to go ahead and discuss a little bit of that today. But think about just the term itself, no credit for time served. And we kind of talked about, how that's related to the legal system and, people with whatever legal sentencing they may have gotten through a court system. And of course, we're talking about marriage, and it's it's a funny thing how our minds can be at times. And I've heard people, and I think we've kind of talked about this also concerning marriage, how media, movies oftentimes will portray this negative undertone, that when you're married, you're locked down, the ball and chain, whatever. And unfortunately, some women also have adopted this mindset somewhere along the line that being married feels like being in prison. And, as we talked about the credit for time served and credits for good behavior and all of that, I thought, it's a scary thought, and it's a very unfortunate thought that that's the way a lot of women are going through marriage. Like, of course, we talked about just give me credit for being here, even if I'm not doing whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, even, to the fullest extent. Just give me credit for the time that I've been here and what I've been doing. And so I was kind of giving a little bit more attention to that, and to the term parole. Again, kind of back with the legal system. And I was thinking about how, if a wife feels trapped in a marriage, if a wife feels like she's in prison because, I'm not sure what all the things are going through her mind that would make her feel that way, especially given how beautiful the institution of marriage is. But sometimes it can derive from a wife just kind of feeling like she's not in control anymore. And that's pretty much what happens when you're in prison. Obviously, you lose freedoms. You lose the freedom to come and go as you please because someone is telling you what to do. Every waking moment, someone else is telling you what to do, what you'll eat, and things like that. And so it's not a good thing that a wife would feel trapped or imprisoned concerning marriage, because and I won't get all into it, but we did talk about free will and how even inside of marriage you still have free will. In other words, we make a choice to be there. We make a choice what that experience will be. We make a choice of what our attitude will be. We make a choice ultimately what the outcome will be. It really is our choice, and we can be in any situation, and we can make it miserable just by us being negative We can make it a miserable situation by pointing out and scrutinizing everything that we think is wrong because maybe, as many women, this is a very unfortunate train of thought. Many women think that if something is not going their particular way, that they had it laid out in their mind, that it's just all falling apart. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And if we just look at the pattern that God laid for us in terms of his order of things, you don't see him using women um, a large percentage of the time to lead things or orchestrate things or coordinate things. They're always usually following a man. So I'm not sure. It's a perverted mindset to think that if things are not going the way I think they should go, then it's just falling apart. But again, because of the lack of control, because we feel the need to be in control, we can tend to again make the experience much worse than it should be. And so, where a woman, and I guess I'll just talk about inmates just for just a brief moment here. Inmates have this higher authority over them. They're going to have the warden is going to be the highest authority, and they have the correctional officers who kind of oversee the day to day these things. And of course, you have the inmates, and there's something called parole where there's a board members, a group of people who sit down and they review files, and this inmate can go before them and they can say, oh, let me present to you all of my great behavior, all of the things that I've gotten involved in. Hey, you can even ask the warden. I have COs who could maybe even account for my behavior because maybe they didn't have to write me up. They have a file on me. Look at me. Yes, I was convicted of all these things that I've done wrong, but hey, I'm better now. Look at all these things that I can present to you. I didn't have a fight, or I didn't, whatever. I'm sure there are a multitude of things that they can get involved in. I know one of the sisters was talking about how some of the inmates would just randomly start fires. Maybe they can say, I didn't start fires. I wasn't involved in the gang affiliations or anything like that. They have all these things that they can present. And I was thinking about that compared to marriage, and it's like that's not the way a wife should be in marriage. She should not be pleading her case about what all she's done as if she's going up for parole. And this is again directly in connection with what we talked about last week. The mindset is off if we're thinking, because the whole idea is kind of give me a break here. But who takes a break from being who they are? Who does it? If I take a break from being me, then who will I be? If I take a break from being a wife and a mother, who will I be? There's only one other option. That's to be a man, to be the husband, to be the father. And I'm just incapable of doing that. So when we're talking, because what's happening, with the parole, the person is saying, yes, I did all these things. I did this thing wrong, and you said I have to serve time for, I don't know, 25, 35, 50, 60 years. But I'm saying, hey, let me out. Let me get out of this early because of my good behavior. And what I'm saying is that when we think about that, and the idea that a wife could have this mindset that I'm imprisoned because I have an authority over me, because I don't have the freedom to do what I want to do in this marriage, and I don't have the freedom to orchestrate it, is really what it is. Because it's not about the wife not just having the freedom to have a voice in it. Because I would imagine that any woman that's married to a man, they have conversations. I don't imagine your life is such that you just walk around each other and don't talk about anything. So this idea that you don't have a voice doesn't even exist. So you have conversations, and I'm sure you talk about things that come up in your life. But again, the point is that A lot of women want full control. And if they don't get the final say, if they don't make the final decision, if their whatever they voice is not considered in the final decision, it's, oh, I'm in prison. I don't have a say in my life. I don't get to do whatever women want to do, which ultimately boils down to having full control. And I'm saying it is a bad place for a woman to be in a marriage and to be able to compare it to being an inmate. I would venture to think that most people who are in prison are really looking forward to their day to get out. So if we say a wife feels like she's in prison, then you can't say that divorce is not an option because you're looking for your day to get out. And again, when I abandon who I am, if I want to take a break from being a wife and a mother, then what is there left for me to do? Who am I? Am I gonna? If I take a break from just being a woman, a godly woman, what is the alternative to that? So we think about this idea that inmates they're looking to get out. All around them, they're seeing fighting and they're seeing death and they're being mistreated in a lot of ways. They're seeing sickness, they're seeing hopelessness, and so a wife in marriage should not be having the same experience. But of course, that only happens if we're doing it God's way. That's the only way it happens. Everything outside of God's way you're going to feel like an inmate. You will have a prison mentality. You will think that your husband is the warden who's enforcing all these hard rules to keep you away from society. But we have to remember something, and I really hope that even people who are not professing believers will hear things like this and really reevaluate the experience that they're having in marriage, to know that there is truly a way to enjoy being with your husband for the rest of your life. You don't have to take a break. You don't have to plan an escape. You don't have to feel so negatively about it. It's a beautiful thing if you make it a beautiful thing. And that's with everything in life. Every single thing you get out of it, what you put into it. And I can't say that enough. Even coming here, we kind of briefly mentioned that last week. You can show up, you can listen, you can take notes, you can talk about it. But if you don't live it, you're not really having a good experience. If you're not living it out and if you're not seeing the outcomes from what you're hearing, then you're not going to look forward to coming and being a part of the discussion. If you're not able to apply it, if you don't see the value of it, you're not going to look forward to coming. It'll just be another chore to you. And that's oftentimes what happens in marriage because we're not learning the lessons. We're not getting the counsel. We're not using the counsel that we are getting. So we're not seeing the growth. We're not seeing the value of the marriage. And so, oh, here we go, just another day. What do I have to do for the warden to make sure I don't get written up, to make sure I don't get called to the principal's office to get talked to about something? What do I have to do? And again, you all have heard me talk about marriage. You've heard the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it gets better and better because I expect it to, and I'm willing to put in the work to make it that way. Because I can tell you nothing just happens. We make it happen. And the same amount of work that we can put into, or the effort that we can put into scrutinizing things and talking about how wrong it is, we can put the same amount of effort into being positive, finding the good, creating good in it, making it good. We have the power to do that. See, I say, quite often that women are in control, but the things that they're in control of, they're not utilizing it to the fullest extent. I'm in control of making my life happy. I can do that. I am in control of seeing things in a positive manner. I can do that. I am in control of what my experience is in marriage. I'm in control of me being a good wife just based on what I submit my will to. So there are a lot of ways that we can exercise our will and be in control, but we are rather, unfortunately, too many of us trying to be in control as a man and not as a woman, because we just want to control everything. How about we just make everybody happy? Let's focus on that. By us first being happy with who God made us, by us being happy with what it is we're pouring into our families every day. Because you know, the stronger our family is, the more of a resource they can be to the community. If we've ever looked at anybody in the world and thought, oh, they've made a great impact on the world, well, you know, you are not going to have a broken family and then be impacting the world on this grand level where everybody knows about it. We have to make sure our homes are intact. And as wives, because we control the temperature there, we control the atmosphere there with what's on the inside of us, then that's what we need to focus on doing that. Let's make it the experience that we want it to be, because our husbands can't make us happy. Our children can't make us happy. That's a choice we make to be happy with our portion. With what we have been allotted, we make a choice to complain about it or to be grateful about it. And of course, with that, you know, it will dictate how our life plays out. So with that, you know, we're talking about, you know, just not having this prison mentality ultimately is, you know, is kind of what it is. Because I tell you, I don't feel like I'm imprisoned to the Lord, but I love the idea of being a prisoner of the Lord. In other words, I don't mind the Lord dictating what my life is supposed to look like. And hint, he does that through my husband. I'm not off in my prayer closet finding out separately from my husband what my life is supposed to look like, because my life is intertwined in his. It's in his life. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, you know, really truly yielding my members as instruments of righteousness to the Lord. I'm okay with thinking on the things that are pure and lovely and true and of a good report. I'm okay with those things. I'm okay with whatever the Lord has called for me to do and be, for me to grow, for me to be the best that I can be. I'm okay with that. But that means he has to be in control. That means I can't go before the Lord and say, look at all these things I've done. I've done all this good. Let me just take a break and cater to my flesh for a moment. See, I can't do that. And I shouldn't be looking to do that. No more than a wife should be looking to escape her marriage and escape being a wife and, you know, taking a break and things like that. Taking a break from what I want. If we will all just stop for a moment and think about the one thing that we really, really enjoy doing, the thing that we can get lost in, the thing that brings our flesh the most pleasure, and how we never want to take a break from it. If we could, we would just do it all the time. Whatever that might be. For some people, that's cooking. For some people, that's singing. For some people, that's writing poetry. For some people, it's sewing. There are a multitude of things that people really, really enjoy doing. And my point is that my passion for cooking or sewing should not exceed my passion for marriage and building a life and legacy for my family. So there is such a thing as enjoying something enough to where you don't want to take a break from it. Now, does that mean every day is easy? No. There are obviously challenging moments. There are obstacles, there are hurdles, there are really, really difficult times that we face. And those things are meant to show us where we are and to give us an opportunity to buckle down and be more firm in our foundation and in our faith. So just because we enjoy it doesn't mean nothing will go wrong. How many of you in here crochet? Just show me by show of hands. You crochet. Just raise your hand kind of high. You crochet. Have you ever started a project that you had to undo and start all over again with? Just by show of hands, raise your hand. Did that make you hate crocheting? No, because you enjoy doing it, even though you may have run into a difficult moment in it. You still you did what you had to do, you recalibrated and you started again until you got it right. That's the way we have to be in marriage. We don't give up. We don't throw our hands up. We don't exit the marriage just because. And when I say exit, I'm not even referring to divorce. I just mean this week it's all about me, that kind of mindset. So we don't throw our hands up and we don't give up on marriage just because something difficult came along. No, we sit back, we reevaluate, and we say, how can I make this better? The same way we do with the crocheting as an example. I'm pretty sure they're not throwing away the yarn and the crochet hook and then having to go buy another one just because they got frustrated with something going wrong. No, you figure out what you did wrong and you go back and you do it right. That's the way to handle it. So again, there are plenty of us in the past. I'm sure we've raised our hands about being on a team, played some type of sport, whether it was for fun or an organized sport. If it was basketball, I'm sure somebody missed the goal at some point. If it was, I don't know, volleyball, maybe you didn't quite hit the ball over the net. If you ran track, um, maybe you got a fast start and you jumped ahead too soon. But you didn't give up, is the point that I'm making. Whatever you were doing, you did not give up in it. You didn't just quit the team and say, okay, well, I messed up one time, or I messed up 3 times, or the coach had to correct me. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to grow in these things. And if we have this inmate mentality, then that's what we're going to act like. I've heard some pretty horrible stories about what inmates go through, but I've also heard some horrible stories about their attitude and their complaining and things like that. And I would imagine that them complaining all the time would make the experience worse than what it actually is. I would venture to think that because by nature, if we're in a situation and all we're doing is complaining and everything is wrong, it is just simply impossible to enjoy that. You might have enjoyable moments, but it would be impossible to enjoy that. And so let's really evaluate our mindsets. Let's think about what our mind truly is about marriage. Are we really seeing it as a blessing the way it is? Are we having that experience? And maybe we've had the experience on and off, but I'm telling you, it can be consistent. It can be consistent. The people who sold the clothes that we have purchased in the store, I'm sure they ran into some issues. They hit a snag. Some things happened, but they were able to somehow get a line of clothes in the store that a lot of people could buy. They didn't just stop. Whoever the designer was, they kept going and they provided something that people could go in the store and buy. And what I'm saying is, let's just keep going. Let's not give up. Let's not be so negative. Let's not scrutinize so much. But when we see something is wrong, The number one question we should ask ourselves is, what can I personally do to make this situation better? Is my attitude positive enough? Is my thinking positive enough? Am I thinking and acting in line with the Word of God to make this a better situation? Because nothing is going to change if all we're doing is complaining about what's wrong and we are not becoming the change that we want to see. That is one of my favorite quotes. I don't even remember who said it. Be the change that you want to see. I think that's very important. We can see all these things wrong, but if we're not changing, then we're wrong also. And we're a part of what we see that's wrong. So shifting gears, same topic, but I'm just going to shift gears just a tad bit here because I wanted to address some of the questions that came up uh, throughout the week. And I'm going to read all three of them and just kind of talk about them. I imagine at the same time. One of the questions, and these are not verbatim. I sort of summarize them according to my memory. They're not verbatim. One of them is, what makes a husband ask, "Where's my wife?" When she is actually managing the home. You know, we talked about that, but this was a question that was asked. She's doing the things that those natural things that we can check off on the list. And we went down the list and talked about the maid, the gardener, all those different things. But that was a question, and it goes along with this question was kind of on the opposite end. How can a wife who has not grown to her full stature in managing the home, that is cooking, cleaning, gardening, mothering, schooling, all these different things, the wife who has not grown to her full stature, maybe she missed those lessons, as a teenager, as a young adult, she didn't get those lessons, so maybe she started off in marriage being behind. How can she still be pleasing to her husband? And the ultimate question with that was, what is the most important ingredient needed to keep him from asking, "Where's my wife?" What is the one ingredient, the one thing that's needed that will keep him from asking that question, that will keep that question out of his heart? And the other question was, how is it possible to be a wife to my husband if I don't hold him in high regard like a wife should? These are all very, very legitimate questions that I think it's unfortunately that the answer to these um, are the very things that will keep marriage going. And yet, I think there are many, many women all over the world who just simply don't have the answers. I'm not sure if they maybe don't know where to get the answers. Maybe the people who are around them don't have the answers or anything like that. And I'll just put this disclaimer here. Of course, every single thing that we call an answer to life, the solutions that we have are going to be scripturally based. Everything we believe is just from the Bible. And we believe, obviously, that marriage is an institution of God. And so when we're answering questions and things like that, we cannot take into consideration what people who are we can't use as a source or as a final authority, if you will, people's situations who are just not living for the Lord and say, "Oh, well, they're doing this," or, whatever the case is. Our source is the Bible, in other words. So when I say things and it's from a biblical standpoint, that's just where we're coming from. So in that, of course, we talked, I think, pretty extensively about, this seems to have shaken up people just a little bit. How can I be cooking and cleaning and taking care of the children and doing all of these things and my husband still not be pleased? How can I do all these natural things? And I'm going to say this again, that husbands are desiring a relationship. That's what they're looking for. The relationship is this: the husband is the authoritative leader, visionary, protector, provider, friend. And so if he's a visionary, if he's the authority, that means he has to have somebody under his authority. He has to be ruling over something, someone. So that's his position. Then there's the wife's position. If he's a leader, then he has to be leading someone. He's the leader, so the wife has to be led. If he's the visionary, then he has to have a vision for something. That's his family. That's his marriage and his family. So she's in the position where she's a part of that vision. If he's a protector, then that means he is protecting someone. The wife needs to be protected. And if he's a provider, then he has to be providing for someone. And that wife and the family is looking for that provision. And of course, we can go on with other adjectives, but we're going to use that to describe. So this is what the relationship is. I'm responsible for you. This is what the husband is saying. And the wife is saying, I need you. That's the nature of the relationship. Husband, I need you. And he's saying, yes, I know you do, and I will be here for you in all these ways. So what happens is, if a wife, I had more than one wife tell me this. On more than one occasion, I've had wives tell me this. I don't need my husband's leadership, and I don't need his money. I don't need his protection. I can do all these things myself. They wanted his companionship because they did not want to be alone. And they liked that he could share the responsibility of helping to train up the children. So they wanted him to be a father. And when I heard that, and just the idea that I could hear more than one wife say that, multiple wives express this, I thought, God, that is it broke my heart. It broke my heart because I simply cannot imagine this idea of spending the rest of my life with somebody that I don't even see the value of you being in my life. I'm just kind of here passing time until I have a moment of something, ice cream or carnival or shopping spree or, that kind of thing. I wait for these moments to come along so I can be happy, and everything else is just a routine, mundane. I'm just making my way through life. I thought that's a horrible place to be, and it's horrible for both people. Because not only is the wife miserable, if they have children, the children are miserable, and then the husband is miserable because they're not in their proper place. Things are out of order. If the wife does not see the need for her husband, if she doesn't know that she has a need and the need is being presented, then she can't value what's being presented. And that's off when we are living a life where we don't value what's being given to us, we don't enjoy it. We don't see the purpose in it. And so I thought that's a really, really heartbreaking mindset, when I think about that. Because again, I know what it is to be in a marriage where you still feel like you're not married. I know what it is to be in a marriage where you feel so disconnected and things are not blossoming. And I know what it is to be in a godly marriage where things are going exactly the way it is supposed to go. And to me, it's worth working for, and it's worth waiting for. Like, we don't have to settle in our mind that we don't need our husbands. Not when God says we do. According to God, we need him. So then are we going to pin ourselves against God and say we don't? Or are we going to reevaluate the way we have been thinking about that? So this, there's a relationship that is supposed to be there, and there are two different dynamics: what that husband is bringing and what that wife is bringing. And those things that I mentioned does not require you to um, do laundry. That may be a part of the vision for managing the home, but I think the vision goes well beyond the home itself. I think the vision of every husband, every godly man who has a family, I would imagine his vision is to make sure that his family is walking in the fullness of Christ according to what God has called them to do. And so we can't say, oh, well, I did your laundry. That's not where we get stuck at. I did your laundry, so I'm doing enough. I ironed your clothes and I cooked the meal for you. That's why we have to be able to separate the two. Because again, and I think we talked about this probably for the first time a few years back, maybe even in a fellowship. What happens when all of those things are outsourced to somebody else? What happened when the husband says, you know what, the children are taking up so much time from us. Let's hire somebody to come in part-time and deal with some of the responsibilities. Let's hire somebody to cook. Let's send our laundry off to the laundry service. Let's hire a gardener. And when all of that is done, what do you have left to offer? So I'm saying again, it has to be more than the laundry list. And I know we've said this again, but it's coming up again because somebody needs to fully understand that you can remove all those responsibilities and you still need to know how to be a wife. I was just sharing this story a few years back. My husband and I were driving on Teague Road. I was driving this particular time. He was in the passenger seat. And we may have even shared this at the fellowship that we were going to that night. But we're going on a winding road, coming to a curve. The speed limit was 40. I was already doing, I think maybe about 30. I was already well below the speed limit. And as we're approaching the curve, he says to me, slow down. So I had a split second to either follow him or reason in my mind, I'm already going slower than the speed limit. Defend myself. What are you saying? Are you saying I'm speeding? I'm not speeding. I'm already going. I had a split second to decide what I was going to do. So I kind of processed what he said to make sure I heard him. It's like, slow down. And I just slowed down. Well, guess what happened? As soon as we got to that curve, because we couldn't see around the curve, there was a school bus over the line in our lane. And the school bus had to correct. Well, what would have happened if I had spent that time reasoning rather than just following what he said? We would have collided with the school bus. There would not have been enough time to correct that. We were too close and we couldn't see each other. But because he said slow down, I slowed down, and then we saw what was ahead. We have to be able to follow our husbands. Now, I can tell you this story now on the other side of it. I don't know if we even talked about it in detail, but when things like that happen, I don't ask him, well, what did the Lord tell you? What did the Lord show you? Did he give you a vision? I don't go into all of that. I just figure, well, the Lord apparently told him to tell me that, and I take it as a learning moment. This is why I need to listen to my husband. This is why I need him. See, the Lord didn't speak that to me. He spoke it to him, and me following him allowed him to protect me in that manner. See, we don't always know how we need to be protected. We don't always know how we need to be led. We don't always know what's coming down the pike. And because the Lord placed him in authority over me, the Lord spoke it to him. Sometimes we make the mistake of thinking like these silly women who said, I don't need my husband for all of it. I have my own money. I can take care of myself. I can provide for myself. I took self-defense classes. I know, and I have a gun. I know how to protect myself. But do you know to slow down when you're already going almost 10 miles under the speed limit? Do you know to slow down to avoid a collision? There's so much that we miss because we think we know so much and we think we don't need that authority. There's so many things that we should have avoided in life, so many people that we should not have met, so many situations that we should not have been in, so many offenses that we've had to get over that we never ever would have had to get over had we placed ourselves under male authority and allowed ourselves to be led by him. There was no way I could have anticipated that there was a bus around that curve. Could not see it. And again, I don't know that the Lord showed him a vision of the bus. I just think the Lord spoke to him and told him to tell me to slow down. And it wasn't, sweetheart, could you maybe slow down just a little bit? Could you reduce your speed some for our safety? No, he was just as authoritative and he said, command. He didn't ask, slow down. So what if I had gotten caught up with his tone? This is why we can't afford to be deceived by the enemy into thinking that his tone is him talking down to us and his tone is him treating us like a child. And I just don't like your tone and I don't want you telling me what to do. We need to realize that God knew what he was doing when he placed men over women. We need to just simply accept that. So that is what an example of what a husband is looking for. He don't want to be on the other side of the curve and then saying, if you had just listened to me, we wouldn't have hit the school bus. That's not the life you want to live. Not at all. Do you know you're taking away from your husband's purpose, his drive, his strength? If he's always having to correct things like that because you wouldn't listen, and then he's having to play damage control and he's having to fix something or, having to call on the Lord to fix something because you just simply didn't listen. Imagine what you all could be doing if that wasn't the case. Imagine how far along you could get in your marriage and how it can blossom and how your family can be strengthened if you just listen and don't have him spending all his time correcting. It really could be as simple as, oh, did he say slow down? Okay, let me slow down. It really could be that simple. But not if we have to be in control, not if we're already seeing ourselves as inmates in a prison, not if we already feel like you're just controlling everything in my life. Well, you control me. I don't want to collide with the school bus. And see, we'll see situations like that or hear about it, and we'll say, oh, yeah, he protected me. But then when it comes to something that we're passionate about, something that we really want to do and we feel so strongly about it and we've made all these plans about it, we don't want to give up our will. But it doesn't change his position. It doesn't change his authority. It doesn't change his protection. He's still there for that same reason. And just because we're passionate about doing something and we have planned it out doesn't make it right to do. We still need to make sure we are being led by that male authority. That's what every father is looking for from his daughters. That's what every shepherd is looking for from the congregation. That's what every husband is looking for from his wife. Just follow without resisting. And if you find this pattern of success, let's just stick with it. And I can tell you that if we follow and we're doing what God has told us to do, there will absolutely be a pattern of success. Satisfaction guaranteed when you do it God's way. Satisfaction guaranteed. You will find a pattern of success. That's one measurable thing. How successful am I in what I'm doing, in being a wife and being a mother? Am I constantly hitting these obstacles and these hurdles where I'm having to be taken back to, okay, wait a minute, my husband and I had this conversation last year. Oh, we had this conversation 6 months ago. There should be a pattern of success if we're doing it God's way. It absolutely should be. So that's what that husband is looking for. And of course, we kind of got the other side of that. He's asking that question because he knows that he is in authority. He knows that he's a leader. He knows that he's a provider, a protector, and a visionary. But the person that's supposed to be in that position to allow him to do that is not in position. And so he's saying, where is my wife? Where is she? I'm here trying to be a husband, but where's my wife? That's what leads to that question when there's an absence of respect, an absence of reverence, an absence of obedience, an absence of submission, an absence of meekness, the inability to follow without questioning everything. And when I say without questioning everything, I don't mean that you won't have questions along the way. There are plenty of times that I see my husband doing things and it sparks questions in my mind because I don't understand the whole process. So it's like, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what that's going to yield. But it's not. Are you sure the Lord is leading you to do that? Because that doesn't seem right. It's not that type of questioning. I don't know about that. And then you're trying to come up with another answer. That's what he's looking for, a wife who can follow without questioning everything, without trying to make him second guess what he's doing. And I'm just going to say this before I talk about this other point, that we can do that in our hearts, in our attitude, in our mind, never speak a word, and he still feels it. He knows when you're not connected to him because it's a spiritual connection that's happening. It's not something you can fake. You cannot fake a spiritual connection. Either you are submitted or you're not. Either you reverence him or you don't. Either you respect him or you don't. Either you're following or you're not. And because it's something spiritual, it's a spiritual bond, he's not fooled by that. It's going to always feel like, I see you smiling and I see you doing this, but something feels off. And even if he can't quite put his finger on it, he's still going to feel it. So that's something that we have to be aware of when we're talking about following. It has to be in our heart. It has to be in our mind, in our attitude, not only in our actions. Because we know that if it's not in our heart, it may be in our actions today, but it won't be in 2 or 3 months or in 2 or 3 years. We can only pretend for so long with things. So the idea is to get it into our hearts. And the last one, last part of that is about, how is it possible to be a wife if you don't respect your husband? Now, this goes back to what I shared about we make a choice. This is very, very important. One of the phrases that we've heard in different fellowships is that the world should not be outdoing godly women. Should not, on no front. We have the detailed description of what it takes to be a woman, a wife, a mother. And so when we have that, we should be mastering that. We should be excelling in that above the world, right? That's not always the case. Um, Case in point is I've mentioned about service before, and I've talked about there was a man who was a leader over a particular office. I don't want to make the mistake and call out the name and the position and all of that to give that away. I don't want to say anything about the company, but this man was a leader of a particular um, portion of a company, and he was actively against Christianity. Did not have a problem voicing that he had a problem with it. He was just not interested in Christianity whatsoever. Um, However, I had the opportunity to observe this man in his level of generosity and giving to people and giving to people's need and looking out for people. I mean, it was, if you had only observed his giving habits, you would have thought that he was a Christian. Hands down, you would have, if that was the only thing you had to observe about him, you would have thought he was a Christian. He was a giver. And it helped me to understand that he made a choice to be that way. It didn't take a move of God, in other words, for him to be thoughtful about people. It didn't take a miraculous work for him to think about people's needs and say, I'm going to give to this need. He gave all the time. He helped people all the time. And yet, he wasn't a professing believer. Now, I don't know, the Lord might have a plan for him and that he was not aware of, and maybe that was something working on the inside of him. All I know is that when I had the opportunity to observe him, he was staunchly against Christianity. Yet, he gave more than a lot of Christian professing believers give. He was more thoughtful than a lot of professing believers that I have observed and been around. Way more thoughtful. And I thought, this is an interesting thing. He wasn't saying, I'm going to wait until I get blessed and I'm going to be a blessing to somebody. He gave out of what he had, whatever that might have been. In other words, I concluded simply that he made a choice to be that way. He made a choice. And so when we talk about being in a marriage and not respecting our husbands, not being into them, and not whatever terms we want to use about how we see our husbands, we make a choice in how we view our husbands. The same. I make a choice in how I view every one of you in here. Most of you, we've had a conversation somewhere along the line where I may have given you a word of correction about something. But when I see you, I don't see your mistakes that I'm aware of. The mistakes that I'm aware of, they're in the past with the conversation that we had. Whatever correction I may have given, it was for the moment and it was for you to grow by and it's for you to take on in life. But I don't think every time I see you, oh yeah, I remember I had to tell you about this, whatever, whatever, whatever. I don't remember those things. That's not the way I see you, and I choose not to see you that way. I don't see you as a burden. I don't see you as a mistake. I don't see you as, oh goodness, here comes so and so. I don't have those kind of reactions to people, especially not you all. I'm not thinking that way. But that's by choice, because if I wanted to, I could take an account of every time I thought you said something wrong to me or responded wrong or whatever, or anything that I've learned about you. If I chose to, I could take an account of those things, and I could say, oh, here comes whatever, and I could call you all kinds of names. But I simply choose not to. I kid you not, over the course of my life, I worked in different offices, and I have been around different women who married men because they wanted stability. Most women want stability, right? That's a common thing. Women want stability. We were designed that way. Why? Because God put somebody over us to protect us and to provide for us. So it's built in us to want stability. We want structure and things. We want things to be okay. We want to feel secure in our lives. So these women that I ran across, they were not professing believers, and I've been in conversations and heard people talk up close and personal about their personal lives. And these were things, at the time I was much younger, and I thought the only reason you get married is for love. You absolutely just have to be head over heels in love, or you just don't get married. Of course, I know better now. That's not that's I think love should exist, but you even have to choose to love people. But and I'm going to just say this really quick about love, because I don't want anybody to get confused. If the Lord tell you to marry somebody that you don't know, you can't say that you love them outside of loving them by faith. So there is such a thing as getting married without being in love. There is such, the Lord might tell you today, okay, this is, you know what, you just met this person last week, you all haven't talked or anything, and I want you to marry this. I'm bringing you all together now. And if we have the ability to follow the Lord in that way, we will enter into a marriage where we have to learn to love that person, because we have to even learn to know them. And then after we know them, we have to choose to love them. So it does exist, but we just simply choose to do that. And so these women, as I've heard over the course of my life, made a decision to marry somebody that was simply based on, I want to spend the rest of my life with a man who can take care of me and our family. That was it. But the wonderful thing about it, and the most dynamic thing about it, what I learned in those conversations, was that those women had a mind. Their mind was set. I am going to do whatever it takes to make this man happy. That was their mind. I will give him all the babies he wants. I will do all the cleaning. Whatever this man wants, he gets it. They made his happiness and his peace a priority. That was it. They made a choice to do that. And they were not professing believers. They weren't professing to be born again. They were not professing to have the Holy Spirit. They just said, I want security, and this man can provide it, and he's willing to take me as a wife, and I'm going to make sure he stays happy. Because I don't want a broken home. I don't want a broken family. I don't want my children going in between two homes. I don't want divorce in my family. I don't want any of that. I'm going to stay here. That's what they were saying. That's what they said. Now, when I was in my early 20s, and I thought, you're marrying somebody for love because you just want them to take care of you. And in my mind, I thought, you're just using that person. That's not what it was. They understood that they couldn't make it in life by themselves. And so they had to submit their will to a man who could lead them, who could be an authority over them, who could protect them, who could provide for them. That's what they did. They found somebody who they were willing to yield their lives to, so that they could be taken care of, because they understood, I can't make it in life by myself. I need this man. I need a man. And if he is willing to marry me, guess what? I'm going to spend the rest of his life making him happy. What? It was a choice. So what happens? What? And I'm going to just kind of add this into it. What if she had not learned how to really be a wife? She just understood I can't make it on my own. I need a man. What if she had never really been taught and trained how to be a wife? What if she had not been prepared, but she was willing to do that? Do you know, and this is my answer to that, do you know her willingness to be all into him and to place him above herself, to put him first, to make him a priority? That is going to make her learn how to cook. That's going to make her learn how to clean. That's going to make her learn how to do laundry. That's going to make her learn how to do all these wonderful things. I will school our children. I will take care of all of these things. Whatever it takes to make you happy, husband, I'm going to figure out how to do these things and I am going to do it well. So maybe she won't start out doing it well. Maybe she does have a lot to learn in the beginning, but she will pursue the opportunities to master those things based on wanting to please him. Why? I can't live life by myself. I need a man. See, those women came to that conclusion. See, they came to the conclusion that some of us professing believers are still trying to get to. They understood that they needed a man. I don't know if they were thinking about what is it like to be 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, not working, trying to live life with no protective covering, no leadership, no provision. Maybe they did think about that. Maybe somebody pointed that out to them. Yes, you're 20, 30, 40 now, but you're not going to always be. One of the most heartwarming things I see when I'm in public is an older couple that's like 70, 80 years old. They're holding hands, they're going out to eat, they're going to doctor's appointments, they're doing these things. And I just sit back and I'm like, wow. I would love to know how much life they lived together. I would love to know what all they went to that got them to this point. They're helping each other get out of the vehicle. They can barely walk and they're holding hands. And I think they went through something together. They experienced life together. They hung in there with each other. And I admire that so much. You can see, how much they care for each other. Yes, I'm barely walking, but there was a time, I'm sure when they got married, that they had some pep in their step. They had a lot of energy. They were not sickly. They had a lot of strength. And oftentimes women are not thinking about that. Yes, you're young and you're beautiful now, but beauty is vain. I'm very, very happy that an old pastor of mine years ago, he would make that statement from the pulpit often. He was like, beauty is vain. He said it doesn't last, it fades away. That's the way he used to say it. Beauty fades away. You need to have something more than beauty to bring to the marriage. You need to get solid now while you're young and beautiful so that when you're old and all of that changes, you can still stand to be there. And that's wisdom though. We don't want to spend all of our lives in our youth catering to ourselves, and then we get to 50, 60, 70 years old and we're bitter, we're old, we've made a bunch of bad decisions, we've spent our life doing nothing, pouring into nobody but ourselves, and then we want somebody to come along and rescue us from ourselves. No, be rescued now. Now's the time to be rescued. It's not a good look to be 50, 60, 70 years old and all you have are your friend girls, as they say, to hang out with. Because you all still can't keep a man. because you've wasted your life catering to yourself, not learning the lessons, not taking from anybody else's mistakes, not learning from your own mistakes, and you find yourself still alone after all that time. That's not the way life is meant to be lived. I truly believe that we are meant to really grow through life with somebody, a wife and a husband, a female and a male. Let me say that because I want to be very clear about what I'm saying. Meant to grow through life together, establish a foundation, establish a family, establish a legacy that you can sit back at the end of your years and just enjoy your life and enjoy what you've done, knowing that you fulfill your purpose, knowing that you actually found what your purpose was. A lot of people are just going through life, women going through life, just doing things, not gaining anything from it. I'm just doing things from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. I have a picture here and there to show me smiling because I was happy to get that ice cream and that vacation and that carnival and, got the recipe right and I put it up on social media. The one time I got a meal right and, all these things, but that it does not encompass a lifetime of being settled, a lifetime of being fulfilled. It's not you actually fulfilling your purpose and living out what you were called to live out. You could have so many more pictures, so many more meaningful moments to look back on, if we will do that. So ultimately, the response is we choose how we see our husbands. That's our choice. It's not based on what he's doing or not doing, because all of that belongs to the Lord. He has to answer to God for whatever he does, how he does it. I choose how I see my husband. I choose whether or not I hold him in high regard. That's my choice. And my choice obviously is going to dictate, again, the experience. So let me say this. I'm going to share this one last thing. And this is so important because I just kind of briefly mentioned a part of us loving our husbands, being into him. Part of that is taking care of his children. That is very, very important. And I think it's more important than women even realize. And I'm going to talk about just daughters because this is important. Like when a man, usually, when a man marries a woman, uh, I would think usually he's looking to have children with her. He's expecting to have daughters in that. And he's expecting his wife to train up his daughters to be young ladies, to prepare them for marriage ultimately. I mean, you're a wife, you have daughters, they're supposed to be learning to be a wife. If that's what you are, right? They're supposed to be learning to be like you are. Not supposed to be, they are learning to be like you are. So whatever you are, they're learning it. Just know that. They are learning it. From a husband's perspective, he's looking for that daughter to be developed and trained into a wife. And we kind of borrowed this term from um, a late social media influencer, and I'm not sure. I think I have the words right. Like what a man is looking for in a woman: fit, friendly, flexible, and agreeable. I might have taken out a word or two that wasn't that, but kind of comes from that. Fit, friendly, flexible, agreeable. Um, that's what a husband is looking for his wife to teach the daughters. And I want to say something about being fit because oftentimes we're thinking about that only in terms of our physical bodies and what they look like. And I just want to say this. My husband said this to me some years ago, and I took hold to it and I believe it. I didn't ask him to prove it to me. I didn't ask the Lord to show me or give me a deeper understanding. I just simply believed what he said, and it made so much sense to me. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me about being fit. Number one, everybody in this world is not meant to be the same size. Okay, that's not it. I think, and I'll use Sarah for an example. Sarah is short, she's petite. I think that size for Sarah is nice, but if I was Sarah's size, I would look like a skeleton. That would not be a good look for me. That would not be a good look for me at all. So we have to understand that everyone is not meant to be the same size. So even when we're talking about being fit, we're not talking about let's find some one size fits all and this is what we should all look like. But I'm going to tell you something, and I've heard men talk about this. Uh, this this is a real scenario where he sees his wife always overeating, right? This is a mindset and an attitude. She's always eating stuff that's going to make her gain weight. But then she turns around and she complains about her weight. And she makes that her husband's issue. Why? Because she's doing something to affect her own body, and then she puts this burden on him to prove to her that he's still attracted to her. That's wrong. So when a man is looking for a woman that's fit, you know what? He's looking for you to be comfortable with who you are, whoever God made you. But he's also looking for you to take care of yourself. So this is what he explained to me. Any woman in adulthood who is eating the normal, ladylike portions of food every day, doing her normal housework, dealing with children, the things that she get exercise from. Whatever size she is from that, that's the size she's supposed to be. Now, look, he freed me when he told me that. I was free. Okay, good. I remember even talking to my mom one time, and she was talking about exercise and all of that. I was like, shoot, I don't have to do that. My husband is satisfied with just the way I am. Look, I was happy. Because all before then, I was aspiring to be a certain size all the time. I had fixed in my mind that I could only be comfortable with myself if I'm this particular size. So we imprison ourselves to this idea of being a particular size. But then when my husband was like, oh no, I like you just the way you are. Oh, okay. Well, yes, that's fine with me. If you like it, I love it. I had to get used to it, don't get me wrong, because I had to retrain my mind not to be thinking, oh, I have to be this size and I can't do this and I can't do that. But he freed me because I found my rest in what he said. So when I talk about being fit, see, he don't want to spend the rest of his life trying to convince me that he's attracted to me because I'm doing all these things to modify my body. When just number one, eat the normal portions that a lady is supposed to eat. Do the normal amount of activity that a lady is supposed to do as a wife and a mother, and let the rest just fall in God's hand. Okay, well, God, you made me this way. Apparently, this is the size I'm supposed to be if this is what it is, and just don't worry about it. Rest in your husband because he's wanting you to be comfortable with who you are. He's wanting you to have the confidence so that when you're presenting yourself to him, you're not trying to hide your body. You're not second guessing yourself. You're not second guess how he's looking at you. You're not wondering if he's pleased and all these things. He needs you to have that confidence. And that's a confidence that he can't give you fully. Because if I had not accepted what he said, that he was pleased with me, he could be pleased. But if I'm not pleased, then I'm still creating a burden, an unnecessary burden. And that's just a very small part of what I mean when I say a man can't make a woman happy. We have to make up our minds. You know what? I can be happy with this. I can be happy with, whatever it is going on. So that I wanted to say that about being fit, friendly. And of course, we talked about that before. Just being a welcoming person, That when people see you, they're okay with approaching you, that they don't either, they're not wondering if you're ready to fight and blow up, or they're not approaching you like they have to feel sorry for you and, well, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Or are you looking depressed all the time? Like, don't put that burden on people. Just smile and be welcoming and, just live life. When I was growing up, I used to hear old people say all the time, they would ask somebody, how are you doing? And, oh, I'm doing fine. People would say, I won't complain. And the response they would get was good because nobody wants to hear it anyway. Seriously, that's what the older people would say to each other. Nobody wants to hear you complaining. And I took that to understand that it's true. People, and they don't want to see the complaints on your face either. No, it's okay to just be okay with today. Yes, we all have issues that come up in life. We all have surprises. We have disappointments. We all have it. But we all don't need to sit around and talk about it. And we all don't need to wear it on our faces. We don't need to let everybody know that something went wrong today. I was laughing about the other day I had gotten Claire dressed. You all know how it works. I got her dressed. She had already eaten. I had her hair combed. I literally I think I walked in the bathroom to wash my face and maybe brush my teeth again. Like, it didn't take long. This was just kind of a refresher before I walked out. And I came back out and my husband said, Claire took her hair loose. I looked, she had those clear balls, um, the the little what do you call those little the bowls? They were all over the floor. They were scattered everywhere. I just looked. I was like, okay. I just started picking them up. Say, okay, let me just do this all over again. you know. And I was getting ready to leave. And my thing is always when things like that happen, especially just before I'm walking out of the door, I'm always consciously aware that I'm about to go into somebody else's presence. I don't want to bring that to them. I just chose not to get frustrated about it. That's all. You know how long it takes me to comb Claire's hair? Probably 5 minutes tops. It does not take me long. So okay, I'll take another 2 or 3 minutes and just brush this back up and do something with her hair. That was a simple choice that I made. I could have gotten frustrated. I could have been, get these balls, Claire. Oh, I could have made that a whole thing. Come on, Claire, let me comb your hair again. Yeah. But I just chose not to because we can make a choice about things like that. We don't, because she's 2 years old. I put these little balls in her hair. I'm just starting to put these things in. She's so excited. She gets a shake in her head and she feels that stuff moving around like, oh, what's going on up there? And she pulling them out, looking at them, playing with them. You know, what does she know about? I combed your hair already because I wanted to be able to walk out the door as soon as I come out of the bathroom from brush. She doesn't know anything about that. She's not processing that. All she knows, she's got stuff moving around in her head, making noise, and she wants to play with it and see what it is. We have to, and so I'm saying we're talking about being friendly. What if I had gotten frustrated and then I go into the presence of everybody and then I'm complaining about the 2-year-old making me take an extra 3 minutes to comb her hair all over again? That's just no way to live. And so, we need to really consider those things that what are we presenting to people when we walk into their presence? What are we presenting? And so we have flexible and agreeable, meek and quiet versus being loud and boisterous. And this came up in a conversation recently, and I was sharing. And when I say meek and quiet, being loud and boisterous, there was this term years ago. I picked up this term, inside voice, outside voice. And this, I kid you not, I'm pretty sure this came from one of these little children's television shows, and they were, trying to teach the children about being quiet and, things like that. And back then, I just thought that is a really good way to teach children. Like, oh, if you go in the library, you have to be quiet, use your inside voice and all of that. But, I have since, come to see it very differently. especially when we talk about teaching our daughters to be meek and quiet. I want you to think about that. Um, if you, and this is something that, I was just telling, Sarah was watching babysitting Claire the other day, and I told her, I said, I want Claire, make her sit down more. I don't want her up moving around, walking around all the time. You may have a playtime set aside, which is fine, but that doesn't have to be for 8 hours. That, you need to be sitting down and being quiet more than you're up moving around, especially as a female. And it's like I have to get accustomed to Claire. Claire is lively. She's a social butterfly like her mother is. Let me tell you, because our two oldest daughters, when they were that age, they were like they were chill. They were just just sitting down, quiet, whatever. They weren't moving like that. And so it's like, okay, well, this is your personality, but she has to be trained. She'll be the life of the party if you let her, or she'll sit down and be quiet if you teach her to. And so, I had shared that with her and told her because I evaluate the things that I done early on, and I look at, okay, and this is something we have to always evaluate. What outcome are our daughters going to have if I allow them to do X, Y, Z, whatever it is? Am I promoting masculinity or am I promoting femininity in what I'm allowing them to do? Um, So we talk about being meek and quiet versus loud and boisterous. So here's the example that I was using. You teach a child, okay, I'll say we're going to bridesmaid. There are adults present, there's authority present. We're in the church, you have to be quiet. We're in fellowship, you have to be quiet. There are adults around, you have to be quiet. Wherever they go, you have to be quiet. Wherever there are adults. But what happens when they go outside to play? Are we allowing them to just turn them loose and scream and be as loud as they want to be and make all the noise you want to be when you're outside, not around authority? When there are no adults around, you can just be free. And when I thought about that, I was like, man, that sends a message to children. It's planting something on the inside of them to have a disdain for authority. Because when I'm around authority, I can't have fun. I have to be structured and I have to be restricted and I have these guidelines and I can't just be loud and out there. Oh, but when I'm away, because they're not, a lot of times there are not going to be a lot of adults on the playground, so to speak, or just outside playing. It might be, somebody kind of monitoring the children from afar, but a lot of times it could be a lot of children out there. And so we send this message to them, to this undertone, have an issue with authority because when authority is present, you can't be yourself. Well, what self are we training them to be? And we're just talking about little girls because we know little boys are different and they have a whole different dynamic, whole different makeup. They're gonna be climbing trees and fences and riding bikes and falling down and getting dirty and loud and all of these things. But what are we teaching our little girls if we allow them to do that? We're teaching them that it's okay for you to abandon your nature of being quiet and being meek. It's okay to just go out and be loud and all of that. You just have to find the right environment. And by the way, the right environment is where there are no adults. So then we're actually teaching them that you just remain childish and immature and don't even grow into who you're supposed to be. Don't even grow. Just always find the playground, in other words. So if we're going to teach our daughters to be meek and quiet, we're going to teach them to be feminine, then we also have to teach them how to play and be that way even when they're playing. That is very, very important. All of this goes into what a husband is looking for his wife to teach his daughter. And I'm going to end it with this because that husband is able to directly link how his wife sees him with how he sees his daughters growing up. Are you teaching them to be loud and boisterous and teaching them to have a disdain for authority because the only time they have to be quiet is when daddy is around. The only time they have structure is when daddy is around. Oh, we've been running wild all day, but daddy's coming home now. Okay, let's everybody sit down. It sends the wrong message. No, we need to respect daddy all the time, no matter where he is, no matter where we are, whatever it is. We need to be meek and quiet all the time. We need to be respectful all the time. And so if mom is helping the daughter to develop into a proper young lady, if she isn't, then it's often going to be due to offense towards dad. And it'll be a retaliation against him. And I've had women actually confess that. I purposely did not do what I was supposed to do with our children because I was angry with my husband. I knew it would get to him, and so I just didn't do it. They used the children to retaliate. And the thing is, the husband knows that something is off about it. He might not say, you are mistreating our children and not training them to retaliate against me, but he knows something is wrong. He knows that if you're a wife, you're supposed to be training the daughters to be a wife. He knows that, and he can see that it's not happening if he sees, the daughters, for the most part, just being neglected. Hair not combed consistently, clothes dirty or clothes not being well kept, shoes dirty, them being allowed to run outside and sweat and play like little boys and things. He sees all of that. Again, he might not say the specific words that I'm saying, but he knows, okay, well, something is off. And let me tell you what's off about it. Well, let me say this. He will start to have, he could, I'm not going to say that he will, he could have a disdain for his wife for not treating his daughters the way that they're supposed to be treated. And then he will have sympathy towards the daughters. He can feel sorry for them and he can kind of cling to them a little bit more. And then you can have this jealousy that takes place between mom and daughter because he's given a little bit more attention to the daughter that he's like, I know mommy is neglecting you. I know it too. And then the wife can get jealous and think that he's just giving all this attention, but really what it is, this perversion that has happened where she's not really training the daughters like they're supposed to be, and he sees that and he feels sorry for them. Why is he feeling sorry for the daughter? Because he's looking to give her away one day. That's the ultimate plan. That daddy is looking to give over his authority over that daughter to give her away to her husband one day. That's supposed to be like the highlight of his life. I am going to give over this wonderful daughter of mine who's been prepared to be a wife to you, and I trust that you're going to take care of her. Let me just insert this because this is the last thing I'm going to share. Many of us have been to thrift stores, right? We've gone thrifting, we've gone looking for different items. Thrift stores have some really good treasures depending on what you're looking for. You can find some good things there. And we've gone to the thrift stores. How many of you have ever been in a thrift store looking at whatever, any number of things? It could be books, clothing, it could be anything. And you saw something in there and you thought, this should not have been given to anybody. This should have been thrown away. Any of you ever saw that? I would not have donated this to anybody. I wouldn't have given this to anybody. There are some things that I won't give to people. If it's too damaged, if it's not like, no, I think more of you than that, I'm not going to give this to you. So if we can have that kind of mind about things like that in a thrift store, that is the way a father feels about his daughter. He wants to know that when he's giving her away in marriage, that he can be proud of what he's given to that husband. He can say, you know what, yes, my wife did take time. We trained this one. She's ready. She might need some more preparation to get into some things because she might need some more practice. But we are proud. That father wants to be proud of what he's giving away in his daughter. He wants to have something to give away. Imagine a father showing up to his daughter's wedding and he knows my wife started being sorry when she was 5 years old, and you don't know what you're getting yourself into. I'm glad you're taking her. Be patient. She'll get there. You just hang in there. She's going to develop one day. That's not what a father is looking for. And he is looking for his wife to love him enough to do right by his children so that when he's giving that daughter away, he can be proud of what he is presenting to her husband. And there is a direct correlation between how we treat our husband's children and what we think about him. If we're not going to train them up in the ways of the Lord, if we're not going to correct their mistakes, if we're not going to say, hey, we started off doing this way, but I have since found out that that's not feminine, so we're going to do this differently. We're going to change this. If we don't respect him and love him enough to do that, that's the type of thing that has him saying, where's my wife? Because I don't even see you passing this on to our daughters. I know what you think about me by what you're doing with our daughters. You're not training them to respect me. You're not training them to uphold my authority or anything like that. So I know what you think about me. And so, my prayer is that we will take everything that we need to take from these things, and that we as wives will not that we will not take on this inmate's mentality as if we're imprisoned by marriage, as if we are trapped, as if we don't have a choice in the matter, because we do. And that we will instead really pursue, is the word that I would use, pursue God's mind about what marriage is supposed to be. Pursue it until you experience it. Don't stop until you are experiencing marriage the way God laid it out, the way I have described to you what I have been experiencing now for years. If you can just picture it, don't stop until you are having the time of your life, until you are looking forward to every day because of your marriage, until you have really gotten away from the inmate status, and that you know that you are just simply one with your husband, and you're building something. You're building your family, you're strengthening your family, and you are building a legacy um, for your family. And I'll just end it with this one last thing about service. We know that our purpose and our presence in this earth is meant to impact somebody else's life in a positive manner. And I just want to encourage every one of you that if your service has been restricted to your home and those that you love, please create opportunities to let it extend outward, beyond you, beyond your home. Make time for other people. Set aside time in your life, in your heart, in your mind, to be available to other people, to make life a little bit easier for them, and to to just take a burden off of somebody else sometimes. Let's do that. And let's always pray that we will be a resource to other people, and that God will be able to trust us to manage our resources well, so that as he gives to us, we sow, and he continue to give to us, that we will manage our time, our resources, whatever God has given us, that we will manage it well, and we will have a heart of service towards people in order to please the Lord in what we're doing. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you again so much for this day, Lord God. We thank you for the things that you continue to share with us to prepare us as wives or to just simply make us better wives. We appreciate all the details, Heavenly Father, and the plan that you have for us. And we pray, Lord God, that these things will stay with us and that we will have the strength to live them out and not abandon the things that we've heard and the guidance and counsel that we have received. Lord, we pray and ask that you will lead and guide us through the remainder of this day. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.